I've seen keyboards with a screen before, and I've seen keyboards with a dial before, and I've heard keyboards that sound pretty nice before. But this is the first time I've seen a keyboard with 2 screens, up to 6 dials, 7 different typing sound effects, a built-in calculator, and a split space bar. Welcome to episode 1 of What Is This, a Keyboard or a Multi-Tool? Hi guys, I'm Matt and welcome to Kit Guru. So let's dive straight in with the design then, because the feature list of the Skyloong GK104 Pro is about as long as War and Peace. We've got a lot to get through, so let's get cracking. The GK104 Pro sports a full-size layout and comes in a variety of colours and keycap configurations or designs. Skyloong sent me over the TI Grey and Quantum Mech No. 2 models for the review, but there are a total of around 10 different styles to choose from on their website. The TI Grey model sports mostly white keycaps with grey, green and orange accents sitting inside a grey case, whereas the Quantum Mech model sports a more gamer-oriented design with a gradient finish to the keycap colours, moving from pink through red and over to black on the right hand side. It's also got some sort of anime finishing and styling to some of the keys, and on the bottom it kind of reminds me of Diva from Overwatch. The cases on both of these are ABS plastic, top and bottom. They've got nice rounded corners and chamfered edges. The only hint of a sharper angle is on the top right corner around one of the screen housings. The cases feel quite nice, they're smooth to the touch, and the matte finish to the paint looks kind of decent in my eyes. Flipping both of the boards over shows some more contrast between the design options on offer from Skyloong, however you say it. While the foldable feet are the same across both, the design on the bottoms is very different. The Quantum Mech model is certainly more striking, love it or hate it. So, the designs are very different. The TI Grey is much more simple and mature, while the Mech model that I've got here is a much more acquired taste. I like the TI Grey model much more personally. I like how it's got some variety to the colours. It definitely stands out next to some of the all black keyboards that I've looked at in the past. Let's move on from the design then and look at the features and the hardware, which are the same across all of the designs. And as I mentioned right at the start of the video, the GK104 Pro features not 1 but 2 screens. Sitting above the numpad there's a small display which shows the date and time, connection type, battery percentage and the various different lock indicators like caps lock and scroll lock and all that stuff. It also doubles up as a display for the built-in calculator function, accessible via a switch on the right hand side. It's a calculator on your desktop as well as a keyboard. That might come in very useful for some people depending on what you do for work and stuff like that. Then a little bit over towards the left there's the main larger removable screen just above the arrow keys. This screen can be configured to show GIFs or GIFs, however you want to say that, pictures and then various different information. It can be customised by holding the function and menu keys, and within that menu you can change the theme, there's a few preset ones, the brightness of the screen and then a few other settings. It's a pretty cool feature. I've set this one up to have a bit of an interstellar theme with a few GIFs. When it's installed though, I do miss having the delete key. Luckily you can remove the screen and you can install traditional switches and keycaps if you want to. All of that stuff is included in the box as well. The GK104 Pro also supports multiple control dials. The board sent out to me had 3 of them installed above that screen out of the box in place of the print screen, scroll lock and pause keys. The board does also support installing them in place of the Escape, F11 and F12 keys though, so you can move them around if you want. And just like that screen, you can remove them altogether and replace them with some included switches and keycaps if you want the GK104 Pro set up in a more traditional keyboard sort of way. Out of the box, the dials were all set up for adjusting volume levels, which is kind of pointless having 3 dials that do the same thing. And as I mentioned, the larger screen and these dials as well can all be adjusted in the software though, luckily. I'll go over all of that stuff a little bit later in the video. If you're looking for a new chair, then definitely go and check out boolies.co.uk. They offer a whole host of gaming and office chairs that come in a variety of different finishes and different colours. For now, let's take a look at the traditional keyboard hardware that we're used to seeing: switches, keycaps and stabilisers. There are a few switch options to choose from on the GK104 Pro if you choose to pick one up off Skyloong's website. There's KTT Rose, Sea Blues, Pinks or Silvers, and then Skyloong's own Glacier silent switches. Both of the boards I have here have the Glacier silent switches installed. They're a linear switch with a total travel distance of 3.8mm and an actuation force of around 50 grams. The switch housings are made from clear polycarbonate top and bottom, and they do come factory lubed. They feel pretty good out of the box and they don't make much noise at all, to be fair. They do live up to their silent claims. The GK104 is hot swappable, so changing out to any other 3 or 5 pin switches can be done without reaching for a soldering iron, which is always nice to see. The keycaps, they're made from double shot PBT and come in a variety of different colours and fonts, as we saw earlier, depending on the design that you choose if you pick one of these keyboards up. They feel well made and comfortable to type on, and the moulding has been done to a decent standard. I've seen no rough edges or burrs when I've been tinkering with these 2 review samples, and the keycaps seem alright and pretty good quality. Stabilisers are plate mounted and they clip in and out of that plate really easily. You may have noticed the split space bar that I mentioned at the start of the video on the TI Grey model in B-roll throughout this video. Both of the boards that I have came with that split spacebar installed, but just like the screen and dials, alternatives are included in the box if you want to switch things up. There's a full-size spacebar and stabiliser, and changing it out takes less than a minute. Here's a sound test of the GK104 Pro, both with the split and full-size spacebars, as well as a little demo of one of the most annoying things I've ever seen or heard on any keyboard. So sound-wise, the boards sound good. They're quiet thanks to the switches and then the multiple layers of dampening material found inside the case. Running the split spacebar does improve the stabiliser rattle due to the smaller size of the keys, as we'd pretty much expect. The full-size spacebar rattles quite a lot more, but I'd say the overall sound profile of the board in either configuration is pretty good. But it's just comical. The built-in speaker playing those sound effects when you type is, I can't say it without laughing, is 100% the most ridiculous feature I've ever seen on any keyboard. Why anyone would choose to use that is just beyond me. Maybe I'm being a grumpy, almost old man, but come on, who is really playing games with a tinny gunshot sound blasting out of your keyboard? It would drive me up the wall. Moving on then, I touched on it briefly earlier in the video, but the GK104 Pro has multiple connectivity options and is compatible with both Windows and Mac. It's got a wired connection, which supports up to 8000 Hz polling, nice for the gamers out there. Then there's 2.4 GHz wireless, which drops that polling rate to 1000 Hz. And then finally there's Bluetooth, something which I'd never use for gaming or unless I was stuck and that was my only option because the latency is just horrible. The connection method can be easily switched using a toggle switch found on the top left hand corner of the keyboard. It's really easy to switch it, you just flick it and it changes instantly. I've been using the GK104 Pro almost exclusively on the wired and 2.4 GHz wireless modes during my testing, and they've both worked well. The wireless connection wakes up fast when coming out of standby, and the wired mode hasn't given me any issues at all. Being a wireless keyboard, there's of course a battery inside and therefore battery life to take into consideration. The battery inside the GK104 Pro has an 8000 mAh capacity and it has been pretty impressive during my testing. I charged the keyboard to full when I started using it about a week ago. The RGB has been on the entire time and it's currently sitting at around 70%. A big plus point to that battery as well is the ease of accessibility to get to it if you want to replace it down the line. Just a number of screws on the bottom of the keyboard, take off the cover and you're in.
As a world-leading manufacturer, CyberPower PC UK expertly builds each PC with the largest range of parts available in the UK. We handle all your packages with care and ship them directly to you on next day delivery. Visit cyberpowersystem.co.uk.
Using this keyboard during that week that I just mentioned has been an up and down experience. Actually typing on and using it is okay, but I'm not being fair, it's more than okay, it's pretty good. It feels nice to type on and has a quiet and polite sort of sound profile. I've had no annoying looks from my missus while she's trying to watch TV, which is always a good sign for a keyboard that advertises itself as being silent. Gaming has also been a decent experience. There's no Hall effect or rapid trigger to talk about here, which have been regular features on some of the gaming keyboards that I've looked at recently, but other than that, it performs okay, and using the split spacebar, especially when gaming, highlights the better sound that I mentioned earlier. Sometimes when gaming with a bit of a rattly spacebar, especially in games where you're hitting that spacebar quite a lot, it just sticks out like a sore thumb, the sound of it, but that isn't the case when you use the split spacebar on the GK104 Pro. But in a very drastic contrast to my experience of actually using gaming and typing on the GK104 Pro has been the experience of trying to customize this keyboard using the software. There's no other way for me to say this, it has been horrible. I've mentioned so many times in previous videos that poor software can be the downfall of good hardware, and it's glaringly obvious that we're dealing with that being the case with the GK104 Pro. The GK6 Plus software is used to manage the key remapping and RGB settings, and it's a very, very confusing experience for anyone who doesn't speak Chinese. It'd probably be quicker for me to learn Chinese than to try and figure out how to change the RGB colour on this keyboard. Simple stuff like remapping the dials to do something other than change volume levels that I spoke about earlier, that's way more complex than it needs to be. I thought I'd done it a few times by changing the assigned function to stuff like turning the brightness up and down, but half of the time they'd still end up just doing the same thing. Figuring out how to actually activate various profiles and set up different lighting effects was a fruitless task. The software defaults to Chinese when it's first installed. You have to go and manually select English, which that's not a big deal, but when you select English, it changes mostly everything, but some stuff is still in Chinese, which I just can't understand at all. It all just feels like a bit of a half-baked effort, this software, and I don't think anyone, as I mentioned, whose primary language isn't Chinese will have a very fun time trying to figure out how to get the most out of the GK104 Pro. Luckily, you can customize most stuff via keyboard shortcuts, but instructions out of the box aren't great. I had to watch a YouTube video on Skyloong's channel to learn how to adjust the screen functions, for example. Software quality aside, the physical quality of the GK104 Pro is decent, thankfully. I won't go as far as to call it good, as it's been made from cheaper materials that we've seen in the past. You can feel it when you pick it up, but I've definitely seen worse feeling and felt worse feeling keyboards than this before. Finally then, pricing. Picking up a GK104 Pro with the screen included and the Glacier silent switches that I've used in this video will set you back £111 from Skyloong's website. Now, putting the software experience to one side for a moment, that's not too bad at all, to be honest. You're getting quite a lot of keyboard and quite a few included little extras for your money when you look at stuff like the extra keycaps, stabiliser, the dials and so on. We've definitely seen keyboards that are way worse value for money than this on the channel in the past. In conclusion then, this is probably the most two-sided I've ever felt about anything I've ever reviewed on the channel up to now. The hardware is pretty good, the board sounds good, looks nice depending on which design you look at and your personal preference I suppose, and then it performs well. The screens are a nice touch that help the GK104 Pro stand out from the crowd. The built-in sound effects are pretty ridiculous, but I suppose they're a party trick. They're not for me, but some people might like them. Overall, I don't mind using this keyboard for typing and gaming. The other side of that argument though is, you guessed it, the software. It's absolutely dreadful. It's confusing. It looks like it's been rushed and thrown together out of necessity without having much thought put into the user experience at all. It's that bad, it overshadows all of the good points about the GK104 Pro for me, and it makes me not want to even try to get to grips with it anymore. Skyloong have a decent keyboard here, but it needs to become more user-friendly if it's ever to become more popular. And that's the end of the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave me a like down below if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with the latest PC gaming news and reviews. And if you go down below this video, you'll find links to our merch store. And then in the video's description, there'll be links to our Discord server, our Patreon page, and our website if you want to check any of that out. Anyway, I've been Matt. These on the table behind me have been the GK104 Pro keyboards from Skyloong. I'll speak to you in the next one. Look after yourselves. See you later.